Hello, booktube. Welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and this is the mid-year freakout book tag for 2021. Okay, so this is my first year on booktube. This, from what I gather, is an annual tag that people do. So this will be my first installment of that. I can answer some of these questions, but not all. And yeah, it's middle of a heat wave. I just turned off my air conditioning, so I'm going to try and get through these quickly so I can get the air conditioning back on. Okay, the first question for this is best book you've read so far this year. This is difficult to answer. I've had a pretty diverse reading year. One of the ones that I've been most impressed with, I guess, in terms of both writing and story, is one of the ones I just finished, and that was Perfume, right, by Peter Ziskind. The story of a murder, originally written in German, and again translated by, what was it, John E. Woods, translated in English. And I don't know how much of it is Ziskind, how much of it is the translator. I am not sure, but I thought the writing was very good, and I loved the story, the historical fiction, the kind of dark horror aspects that come in, the fairy tale aspects. I really enjoyed this, and definitely one of my favorites of the year, especially in terms of fiction. Other fiction experiences that I really liked, at least one that I could say that I really enjoyed, was Musashi by Yeiji Yoshikawa. Another translated work, so I don't know what this is saying, that I've liked the translations, although it wasn't the language of that translation, it was just the story, again, but it's another historical fiction. So I was never somebody who read a lot of historical fiction. I love history, and I think I kind of had a certain attitude of, why would I read a fictional account of history when I just go and read the real thing? But I certainly, softened from that, in many respects, and between Musashi and Perfume, I think I'm ready to start looking for more historical fiction. So anyway, this is one of my favorites, definitely. Number 2, best sequel you've read so far this year. Well, I only read one sequel. I'm not somebody who reads a lot of series, not because I'm against them, it doesn't get into my reading cycle. But the only sequel that I read is William Peter Blatty's Legion, the sequel for The Exorcist, and I was very mixed on that one. I didn't love it. I like the film version that Blatty did, that he directed. Exorcist 3, actually better than the book. So it's the only one I read, so I guess it's the favorite and also my least favorite. Number 3, new release you haven't read but want to. There is one book that's really caught my eye that was released, I believe, earlier this year that I would like to get a hold of, and that is Madness at the End of the Earth by Julian Sancton, about the, I guess, 1897, I think, Belgian expedition to Antarctica, and it's described as a historical thriller and part gothic horror. So I think they kind of go to Antarctica and start going insane, disease, and it's a terrible experience, but it sounds up my alley. History and horror, nonfiction at that, mixing. So that's one that I would like to get a hold of. Number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I have no idea. I don't have my finger on the pulse of these things. Most of the books I get are secondhand, so I'm usually reading older stuff anyway, and I don't pay all that much attention to stuff that's coming out until it's out. Then when I see what the new release is, then I know about it. I very rarely know about things that are coming beforehand. Number 5, biggest disappointment. That's tough. I did have some disappointing reads, not because my expectations were high, just I found the experience, either as the story progressed or where it went, I wasn't crazy about it, or, just overall disappointing experience by the end, where I was kind of like, eh. And Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh, I didn't really feel connected to that. There was a read-along that Steve Donahue and Matt over at Mayberry Book Club were doing a couple months ago, and I was glad to, follow along with that. I'm glad that I read it. I'd never read Evelyn, or Evelyn, I'm not sure how you say it, Waugh before, and everybody seemed to love it. I just didn't really like it or the characters. Beautiful writing. I didn't like the story. So that was kind of a disappointment. I just mentioned Legion, William Peter Blatty. That was also kind of a disappointment. Steve and Matt also did a read along of Batman, The Dark Knight Rises by Frank Miller, a very influential graphic novel, and that was also, you could say, kind of disappointing where that went. But that's, in this case, I think they would agree with me on that one. Maybe not the first one they did. Also, the Poppy War. A little bit disappointed in that. Although I saw that Steve, the other Steve, over at Steve Talks About Books and Stuff, just did a review of the second installment of that trilogy, the Poppy War trilogy, and he had very high praises for it. So maybe I'll give this trilogy a try after all. But I was pretty disappointed in the first one. Biggest surprise. Again, two recent things that I read. I already just talked about Perfume. Okay, didn't really know exactly what to expect, mostly because I didn't remember enough about the movie to expect it. So I was surprised by how much I liked this. And another big surprise was this one that I just talked about in my most recent Fresh Red Kills video. William Castle, Step Right Up, I'm going to scare the pants off America, Memoirs of a B-Movie Mogul. Surprised on the one hand at how bad the formatting is in this book, but also surprised at just how great of a storyteller William Castle is and how much fun this book was. So pleasantly surprised in one way and disappointed in another, but overall I really liked this book. Number 7, favorite new author. Now, I can't say any new favorites. Certainly some authors that I'm going to, I'll keep an ear out for, or not an ear out, an eye out for, but I wouldn't say a new favorite. Newest fictional crush. It's questions like this that I just don't know. I'm not entirely sure what the audience is for it. I wouldn't say that I have fictional crushes, especially the kind of things I read. Usually it's filled with people, fictional or otherwise, who are largely undesirable. I will say one woman that stuck out to me would be Freydis. I don't know if I'm saying that right, from the Saga of Eric the Red. I think Eric the Red's illegitimate daughter. Because there's a point that I'm talking about Icelandic sagas right now, so medieval texts. Vinland, when the Norse population from, first Iceland, then Greenland, when they made their way to North America, you had two Vinland sagas. There was the Greenland saga and the Saga of Eric the Red. And this character appears in both of them. In the Greenland saga, she's definitely a villain and takes murderous rage on people. It's not so clear about that in the Saga of Eric the Red. But there is a point where they're in Vinland and they're being attacked by Native Americans, what they call Skraelings. And she ends up running out of her hut and calling the men cowards. And I think she picks up a sword from a dead man and then exposes her breast and starts hitting the flat of the blade against her breast, screaming at the natives, and she scares them so bad they run away. So I got a little bit of a crush then. Might not be for everybody, but that seemed like the kind of woman I could party with. So I'm going to say Freydis. She's my new fictional crush, if I really had to choose something. Newest favorite character. I really enjoyed Musashi, Miyamoto Musashi from Eiji Yoshikawa's Musashi. That he was a really great character that has great arc and progression. You see him grow and mature, become more philosophical. Another character I loved reading about this year was another Icelandic saga, Njal Saga. It's part of another read-along, the Saga Long, that happened earlier this year. And that would be Gunnar, who is just this, he's like an 80s action hero set in medieval Iceland. He has this glaive, they call it a halberd, but I guess it's more like a glaive, and he's picking up guys and throwing them. And at his last stand, he called his loyal dog, whose name is Sam, he called him his foster son, and that kind of endeared him to me. So yeah, I say Gunnar is one of my favorite people that I read about this year. Number 10, book that made you cry. Nothing made me cry. Book that made you happy. I mean, I was happy about reading Njal Saga. I was happy reading Step Right Up. It was a joy to pick this up each time. I keep going back through The Wanderer's Havamal. This makes me happy to read. So I guess those are my answers for that. When I think book made me happy, it made me joyous to keep reading and picking up, not necessarily because it's a happy book. Number 12, most beautiful book that you've gotten so far this year. So I'm keeping, I guess, a Norse theme. I got 3 Viking books that I haven't read yet, but I just think they're beautiful, and they all have something in common. They all show like the kind of curved, is it a prow, front of the ship? I'm not a nautical person, but if you've seen the Viking ships, they're gorgeous pieces of art, and all 3 of these books display them. But all 3 of the cover designs I just think are gorgeous. Like, here's The Age of the Vikings by Anders Winroth. But I just love the cover design on here. The color scheme. Got the spine, the back. This is just going to look beautiful on the shelf. Another one that my kids got me for my birthday, Tales of Valhalla. Again, I love the color scheme, the font. Another beautiful spine on there. And another one I got for my birthday, somebody else, that I just think is gorgeous, is Children of Ash and Elm, History of the Vikings by Neil Price. But, I mean, what a beautiful looking book. Love that spine, too. Anyway, I just think these are gorgeous. They all, they happen to be all about Vikings. But I also think that they're all genuinely beautiful. So, number 12. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? I got too many books in my TBR. But I do have a couple buddy reads or group reads that are coming up that I'm looking forward to. In August, there's going to be reading The Histories by Herodotus with Mark from Book Time with Elvis and Summer from Cozy Reading with Quaker Cats. I think I saw that Michael K. Vaughan is also going to join in on that, and that'll be a fun one. Speaking of Michael K. Vaughan, in September, I think we have a buddy read plan to read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And then in October, buddy read with Steve from Steve Talks About Books and Stuff. Between Two Fires by Christopher Buhlman, I think. I don't know why I butchered that. But kind of a medieval horror that looked really intriguing. So I look forward to reading that with him in October. And the last question, best book to movie adaptation that I read this year, that I watched this year. I'm going to say Carmilla, the British film that technically 2020, it came out on Shudder, the American horror streaming service, this year. And it's a British film directed by Emily Harris, and it's a really intriguing adaptation of Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu, the kind of novella / short story that could be found in a Glass Darkly, I believe is the collection from the 1870s, I think. Hopefully I'm not getting all that information wrong. It's kind of off the top of my head right now. But I do like that collection. I like Sheridan Le Fanu. And Harris takes a very interesting take with this story. This kind of, it's famously the first kind of like lesbian vampire story, where she kind of turns it into a period Gothic romance that you can either read as a vampire story, or you can read it as girls who are sort of out of touch with their own time, either through nature or through habit or through sensibility, and the consequences that are thrown upon you for being a nonconformist. I think that by the end of the movie, you can read it 2 different ways, in a supernatural way or a non-supernatural way, and I was really intrigued by that. It's a slower moving film, but I really liked it. So that, I guess that would be my favorite, book to movie adaptation for this year. And that's it. Those are my answers for the mid-year freak out book tag for 2021. All right. Thank you very much, BookTube.